In 1923, 9 of the richest men on planet Earth sat down together at a hotel in Chicago. Between them, they controlled more wealth than the entire United States Treasury. Steel, oil, utilities. Wall Street itself bent to their signatures. 25 years later, a journalist tracked down what happened to each of them. 3 had died broke. 1 was in prison. 1 had jumped from a window. 2 died young, ruined by stress the money could never buy back. Here's the paradox nobody wants to say out loud. Getting rich and staying rich are 2 completely different skill sets. 1 is a sprint. The other is a war fought entirely inside your own head. And the millionaires who actually last, the ones who build empires that survive generations, they didn't get there by luck, by a single lottery ticket idea, or by some secret formula whispered in a boardroom. They got there by breaking almost every habit society trains you to have. Right now, somewhere in the world, a person making $40,000 a year is making decisions that will make them richer by 60 than a surgeon earning $400,000. Not because of income, because of behavior. That's the great illusion. We're taught that wealth is about how much you earn. It isn't. It's about what you do in the 15 seconds after the money hits your account. 96% of self-made millionaires, according to a decade-long study of over 10,000 high-net-worth individuals, never received a large inheritance. No trust fund, no golden ticket. They built it, brick by invisible brick, using a small set of habits so unglamorous, so boring, that most people scroll right past them looking for a shortcut that doesn't exist. So what are they actually doing differently? What is the mechanism, ticking away quietly under the surface, that separates the temporary rich from the permanently wealthy? Stay with me, because the answer starts with a decision most people are terrified to make. Strip away the yachts. Strip away the private jets and the watches that cost more than houses. Underneath all of it, there is a machine, and that machine runs on exactly 4 gears. Gear 1, extreme delayed gratification. Picture 2 men standing at a fork in the road. One takes the paycheck and buys the car, the shoes, the dinner out. Instant relief, instant status. The other takes the same paycheck and feels almost nothing. He funnels it somewhere invisible, an index fund, a business reserve, a piece of land nobody's watching. 10 years later, the 2 men look completely different. One is still trading hours for dollars. The other has built a second income that never sleeps, never calls in sick, and never asks for a raise. That gap is not talent. It's tolerance for boredom. Gear 2, asymmetric risk, not reckless risk. This is where most people get it catastrophically wrong. They think millionaires are gamblers. They're not. They are obsessive calculators of downside. Self-made wealth isn't built by betting the house. It's built by finding bets where you can only lose a little, but win enormous. A market stall that costs $200 to test. A digital product that costs a weekend to build. Small, controlled explosions, not one giant gamble in a dark room. Gear 3, time is the only non-renewable currency. Watch how they guard their calendars. Not their bank accounts, their calendars. Because money can be rebuilt. Time cannot. The self-made millionaire will pay someone else $50 an hour to mow the lawn, so they can spend that hour building something worth $500. To an outsider, that looks wasteful. It's the single most important math equation in the entire game. Gear 4, compounding, applied to everything, not just money. Skills compound, relationships compound, reputation compounds. The habit isn't save 10% of your income. That's the surface level advice sold in 1,000 seminars. The real habit is stacking small, unglamorous advantages. A slightly better negotiation here, a slightly deeper skill there, until one day the stack is so tall it's generating its own gravity, pulling opportunities toward you without you lifting a finger. For gears, turning quietly, invisible to everyone, except the person turning them. But knowing the mechanism isn't the same as watching it survive real fire. Because theories collapse the moment they meet chaos. And one man, in one filthy, blood-soaked industry, would prove every one of these gears under conditions that should have destroyed him first. Pittsburgh, 1870s. Smoke coughs into the sky like the city itself is dying of tuberculosis. Furnaces roar hot enough to melt bone. And in the middle of it stands a Scottish immigrant who started working at age 13 in a bobbin factory for $1.20 a week. His name was Andrew Carnegie. He had no formal education past childhood, no family fortune, no connections. What he had was an almost inhuman discipline around the four gears. Delayed gratification. While other telegraph clerks spent their tiny wages on drink and entertainment on a Friday night, Carnegie was reading, borrowing books from a colonel's private library because the public library wouldn't let a working boy through the door. He was investing in something with zero immediate payoff, knowledge, while everyone around him chased the dopamine hit of the weekend. Asymmetric risk. His first real investment wasn't in steel. It was 10 shares in a sleeping car company, a tiny bet most men would have ignored. It cost him almost nothing. The dividends it threw off eventually funded his entrance into the railroad and iron industries. A $200 seed that grew into an empire. Time as currency. Carnegie made a decision that terrified his peers. He stopped doing the actual physical work of the business. While other steel men were on the factory floor, sweating, managing, controlling every bolt, Carnegie spent his hours studying markets, recruiting the smartest engineers alive, and squeezing out competitors through pure strategy. He treated his own attention like the rarest metal in the building. Compounding. He obsessively reinvested profits into newer, faster, more brutal technology, even when the old machines were still working perfectly fine. Competitors thought he was insane, tearing out functional equipment to install the latest Bessemer process. But each upgrade compounded on the last, until Carnegie Steel could produce iron at a cost nobody else on Earth could match. By 1901, he sold his empire for $480 million. In today's money, that's over $400 billion. From a factory boy earning $1.20 a week. But here's the detail the documentaries always skip. Carnegie gave away 90% of it before he died. Not out of guilt, out of a brutal, calculated belief that dying rich was, in his own words, a disgraceful way to end a life. The habits that built the empire and the habits that gave it away were the exact same habits. Discipline, calculation, long-term thinking that most humans are neurologically uncomfortable holding for more than a few days. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the formula is this identifiable, this repeatable, why do so many people who discover it, who genuinely try to copy it, still end up broke? The answer is darker than lack of discipline. It's a trap, and it's swallowed more fortunes than any recession in history. Here's the number that should terrify anyone chasing wealth. 70% of lottery winners go broke within 5 years. Sudden money, without the underlying habits, doesn't create a millionaire. It creates a countdown clock. But the mistake isn't limited to lottery winners. It's the single most common killer of self-made success stories, too, and it has a name. Lifestyle inflation. Picture the trap in motion. A young entrepreneur builds a business. First real profit hits, $50,000 in a single month. The old version of them would have funneled it into the next gear of the machine. But something shifts psychologically the moment real money appears. The brain starts justifying rewards it hasn't actually earned yet. A nicer apartment, a faster car, a watch to prove to everyone, including themselves, that the struggle is finally over. The struggle is never finally over. That's the lie the trap sells you. Because as income rises, the machine of habits built during the lean years quietly switches off. The delayed gratification muscle, the one trained through years of discomfort, atrophies the second comfort becomes available. And once that muscle is gone, it takes catastrophic failure to rebuild it. There's a brutal case that plays out over and over in business history. Founders who built something from nothing, sold it for a life-changing sum, and were broke again within a decade. Not because the money vanished in one bad decision, because 100 small decisions, each one justified individually, quietly bled the fortune dry. A bigger house here, a safe investment there, chosen out of overconfidence instead of the same cold calculation that built the original wealth. The four gears don't just stop turning. They start spinning in reverse, and nobody notices the direction has changed until the tank is empty. The second trap is quieter, and almost nobody talks about it. Confusing motion with progress. The habit-obsessed hustle culture sells the idea that if you are simply busy, grinding 18 hours a day, responding to every message instantly, chasing 10 different opportunities at once, you are automatically closer to wealth. You are not. Andrew Carnegie didn't work 18-hour days on the factory floor. He worked intensely on a small number of decisions that actually moved the compounding forward. Everything else, he ruthlessly delegated or ignored completely. Self-made millionaires are not the busiest people in the room. They are the most selective. The trap catches 99 out of 100 people who try to walk this path, because it's disguised as virtue. Working hard feels honorable. Working smart, protecting your time, saying no to easy money, staying uncomfortable long after comfort is affordable, feels almost cruel to yourself. And that leads to the final, uncomfortable truth sitting underneath this entire story. If the habits are simple, and the trap is well documented, then the last mile isn't about information at all. It's about whether you can survive being boring for longer than everyone around you is willing to. So here is the blueprint, stripped of every myth. Step 1. Protect the first 5 years like a hostage situation. Whatever income arrives, whatever windfall lands in your lap, the habits from the lean years do not get to die the moment comfort becomes possible. The apartment stays modest a little longer than it needs to. The car stays practical a little longer than it needs to. Every self-made fortune that survived more than one generation was built by someone who stayed uncomfortable on purpose, long after they had the option not to. Step 2. Hunt for the $200 bet, not the $200,000 bet. Small, asymmetric, controlled experiments, stacked one after another. Most of them will fail quietly and cost you almost nothing. One of them will not fail, and that one will change the entire trajectory of everything that follows. Step 3. Guard your calendar with the same intensity a bank guards a vault. Every hour spent on a task someone else could do for $20 is an hour stolen from the one task that could be worth $20,000. Step 4. Reinvest into the compounding, even when the current machine still works. Carnegie tore out working equipment to install better equipment. The habit isn't fixing what's broken. It's upgrading what already works long before it has to. And step 5, the one nobody wants to hear. Accept that this will not feel exciting. It will not feel like the version of wealth sold to you online. It will feel, for years, like nothing is happening at all. Because compounding is silent. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't send a notification. It works in the dark, quietly, for years, until one day the curve bends upward so sharply it looks, to everyone watching from the outside, like an overnight miracle. It never was. It was a factory boy reading books alone at night while the city slept. It was 10 shares nobody else wanted. It was 100 boring decisions, made in a row, by someone who understood one simple fact the rest of the world keeps forgetting. The people who look like they got rich overnight spent a decade being invisible first. Somewhere out there, right now, someone is making that decision, turning down the reward, choosing the boring path, building the machine nobody can see yet. And in 20 years, you'll call it luck.